Hello, BookTube. We're continuing with my library tour. I am now standing up, which is not an activity that I recommend. And we are continuing with this custom-made bookshelf. It was made for me by a muscular teenager, and it was made to my specifications, so it is thin. And the shelves are they're just deep enough for one standard hardcover, no lip, but they are taller than a standard hardcover, which means there's plenty of room for crosswise stacking. I wanted one bookcase to be like that. Most of them in this room are not. But this one is, so there's plenty of crosswise books. Let's do those first before we get on to the books on the shelf. So we have this thing here, this little thing from Pushkin Press on reading, writing, and living with books. Cute little thing that has How Should One Read a Book by Virginia Woolf, a letter from Charles Dickens to Wilkie Collins, a letter from Charles Dickens to George Eliot, the Little Piece Authorship by George Eliot, My Books by Leigh Hunt, and The London Library by E.M. Forster. This is absolutely delightful. Little things like this I just eat up. Although, say it with me now, it should not be here. I have a section in my library squarely devoted to books like this. So we're going to put it aside. We're going to put aside the crosswise books anyway, but a lot of them aren't coming back. I'm leaving behind a completely different library than the one I'm talking to you about, which completely ruins the point of this library tour as a visual record for myself. We're going to continue. We're going to continue anyway. Okay, then we have the mass market paperback of Antonia Fraser's biography of Cromwell. This is Oliver Cromwell, not Thomas Cromwell. This is the man who killed a king. And I've never seen... I've had the hardcover of this, and I've had various trade paperbacks of it, but none of them are as congenial as just this beaten up old mass market paperback. So that's the one I have, although it does not belong here. I have a section in my bookcase elsewhere in Hyde Cottage for biographies. We're going to be getting to it one of these fine days. So, now what else have we got? Oh, okay, this is the Penguin paperback of The Establishment and How They Got Away with It by Owen Jones, who was a young boy when he wrote it. He still has his boyish looks, even though he's 40 now, although he's doing his absolute level best 3 nights a week at least to erode those boyish good looks. Nevertheless, he still has them, and he's a pretty snappy writer. I really enjoyed this book. He wrote another book called Chavs that I also enjoyed but don't have. Okay, then we have a collection of book reviews. It has been gussied up. We've talked about this before on this channel, how sometimes writers, whether they're book reviewers or historians or academics of one kind or another, they will write book reviews for the periodical press regularly. Once you get into that habit, you never get out of it. Especially if you've got editor friends who know that you are reliable for readable prose. Because if that's true, and if the publishing world has got wind of the fact that you've reviewed a few books in your life, you're going to be getting books in the mail, and those editor friends are going to be saying, "I will always up for taking a piece from you." It's not money. It's not much money, but it is some money, and it's a habit. It's hard to get out of that habit. And this is a perfect example of that. This is David Kennedy. He is fantastic. This is called Aspects of Aristocracy, because he wrote a book. In addition to writing a fix-up thing like this, he also wrote an actual book called about the British aristocracy. This is mainly just occasional pieces built into a book, but really, really good, and also about the aristocracy. I have almost everything that this author wrote because, again, like Owen Jones, he's pretty snappy prose stylist. Okay, then, speaking of a snappy prose stylist, this is A Cab at the Door and Midnight Oil. This is a modern library paperback of V.S. Pritchett. 2 memoir volumes by V.S. Pritchett that are absolutely wonderful. This doesn't belong here. I have a section in my library for biographies and memoirs and autobiographies. This belongs out there. This and Cromwell need to beat it. They need to get out of here to make room for books that do belong in here. But anyway, those are the cross-stacked books. It's really nice. It's nice to be able to... It adds a nice visual element, and it also, of course, helps with the storage if you can stack books. Then we'll move on. Oh, this first one is oversized. It actually juts out past the lip of the shelf. This was actually a gift from one of you, and an amazing gift, an absolutely amazing gift. This is the Penguin Classics book by Henry Elliott, which takes you on a tour of all the Penguin Classics. There's the Tale of Genji right up there. It takes you on a tour of all the Penguin Classics, all their different editions, all their history. Just amazing. I've spent so much time with this book. I don't know. It was a perfect example of a bookish present, because I would not only do I want it, and not only do I spend a lot of time with it, but I would never have splurged for it on my own, which makes it a kind of a perfect present there. Then we have, okay, this big fat thing is from, who does this? Orion Books. This is the complete Chronicles of Conan in a big fat trade paperback, which has an interesting, complicated history. I saw this in the bookstore when I worked in a bookstore. We had this for sale, and I thought I could not justify buying it when I had all of the Elsbreg de Camp Conan books in mass market paperback. I didn't think anything of it at the time. But I liked the look of it, very much so. And then I noticed it on the shelf of Jason Harrigan, back when he was making booktube videos. He had the hardcover of this, and I oohed and ahhed about it. And Prince that he is, he sent it to me. And so I had it, and that was great. It was absolutely fantastic. And then one of you also sent it to me. You sent me this, the paperback. And I thought, well, I don't need 2 copies of this thing, so I gave the hardcover to Mark Richardson as a kind of a musical chairs of book ownership. Now I have this. Although, the last few times that I've had a yen to read Conan, I have to confess, I have done so digitally. And I have, the things that I have read digitally have been those old Elsbreg de Camp volumes, which for me, like I think for a lot of people, were my introduction to the character. So I haven't given this thing the workout that it deserves. It's a kind of faux leather, a little bit tougher, so you can see the marbled finish there. So it's possible that this thing will stand the strain. I would hope that it would. Oh, okay. Then we have. Oh, well, these should be together. Let's put these. Let's move these around. I have a couple of books on Penguin Classics, which I dearly love. This is by Stuart Kells. This is Penguin and the Lane Brothers: The Untold Story of a Publishing Revolution. I believe that one of these 2 books, if not both of them, were also gifts from you. This is that story, and that story is fantastic. And it's one of at least 2 books. This is one that's twice as big. This is the Penguin Special, the story of Alan Lane, the founder of Penguin Books, and the man who changed publishing forever, by Jeremy Lewis. And this is, so that's 3 Penguin books, 3 books on Penguin Classics in a row. So I'm going to put those together nice and neat. Okay, all right. Well, I'm not gonna repeat myself ad nauseum. Heaven forbid I should do that on this channel. This is Ferris Greenslet did this book a long, long time ago. When did you come out, my darling? When did you come out? The 1940s? 1946. This is the Lowells and their 7 worlds. This is about the Lowell family. The Lowell fathers, the Lowell sons, the Lowell brothers, the Lowell daughter. And it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It's never been, as far as I know, reprinted. It's completely forgotten. These are great stories. And the reason that I oh-myed about it is because, of course, it does not belong here. It's just, I'm not saying just, it's a really, really good group biography. Those are tough to do. But it's a biography. It doesn't belong in here. It belongs with my biographies. Think of how much shelf space I would be clearing up in here. For classics, like this next one. This next one, which I found after a long time at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, and I revived it. This is The Histories of Herodotus, the George Rollinton translation. I had this very volume. I thought I had this very volume for years and years here in this room. And somehow or other got rid of it. I have no idea why or how or when, but suddenly I looked around for it because Rollinson has a particular rhetorical flavor for translating Herodotus. And if you like it, and I do, nothing else comes quite close to, nothing else is quite like it. I looked around and it was gone. And this is an older volume. This is from 1936, 1928, 1936. So It's an older volume, and so in the normal course of things, if I lived in Keokuk, Iowa, I would say, well, goodbye to that. I guess I could go online and pay $100 for it, but I'm never going to see it in a used bookstore again. But with the Brattle Bookshop, even something like this, I thought, well, the Brattle will provide. Sooner or later, I will get a second chance to do that right. And they did. The Brattle did. I got this just recently. I cleaned the cover and put a dust jacket on it. I also cleaned the spine and rewrote the title. This was, Rawlinson's name is faded a little bit there. I cleaned the spine as well, but this was faded completely. You couldn't read it at all, and I didn't want to not be able to see it, so I redid the lettering there and then just protected this thing. So it'll be right here the next time I want to read Rawlinson's particular version, his particular rendition of Herodotus. And this is also a perfect example of what I'm talking about, that slowly but surely, what's another example here? This thing we saw yesterday, that's on one channel, but slowly but surely, canonical classics are taking over this room. They have so many infinite editions and so many infinite memories for me, far more memories than anything else. The canon has far more memories for me than anything else. I'm one of those readers for whom the standard canon, the standard Western canon especially, is not a dry academic duty. I learned reading from these books first. I love them passionately first. For me, they are unbelievably alive. All of them in this great chorus of voices. And slowly, all kinds of different editions and shapes and formats of those classics are filling the shelves of this room. And that's okay by me, absolutely okay by me. What I really need to do, though, to facilitate that process, is pull books off of one whole bookcase, the one right next to the romance bookcase, because I've got a classic bookcase right there that is piled thick with classics in all their different shapes and sizes. Not like the Penguins where it's uniform. It's all kinds of different shapes and sizes. Then I've got the Penguin bookcase, which for sheer volume, that's the only bookcase in this room that will work. The one right next to that is floor to ceiling, but I commissioned it, and it is really tall shelves. It's 4 extra tall books, art collection, things like that. But then the bookcase right after that, so the first bookcase flush on this wall, is perfect to continue the sweep of classics. But right now, it's a hodgepodge. So what I need to do is take everything off it and fill it with the classics in this room. Shift them all over there. And then, repatriate the books from that shelf onto the shelves where there's space. And I'm going to do that, definitely, because I want to see the progress of the slow creep of classics. But as you can tell, the minute I do that, I will have completely invalidated this entire library tour for this room. Nothing will look the same except the Penguin Classic bookcase and the romance bookcase. Other than that, everything will look different. We're going to continue. I found this. This is the Assassin's Cloak, also with a library dust jacket. This is a great big, fantastic collection of diary entries over the centuries, broken up by date instead of by time period. So you get the 2nd of May, you have 1933, 1945, 1945 again, and 1997. The 3rd of May, the first entry is 1787, then 1943, then 1975. And it goes from there. This is an amazing thing to sit on your nightstand and read through. In addition to your night's reading, but just put a bookmark in this thing on the current date of the year. It really is an amazing reading experience to see how much was so important. This is, February 27th. How much was so important to people on those dates. And those dates are long gone. They are long gone, and the people themselves are dust in tombs. They are long gone themselves. Let's see what people were worried about on the 27th of February. Our first entry is 1814 from Lord Byron. There is something to me very softening in the presence of a woman. That must be the drink talking. They're the devil. Some strange influence, even if one is not in love with them, which I cannot yet all account for, having no very high opinion of the sex. It's true. He didn't have a very high opinion of the sex. There were 2 reasons for that. And one of them is the only one you will ever read about Lord Byron, because the records of the other reason were all destroyed. But yet, I always feel in better humor with myself and everything else if there is a woman within ken. Even Mrs. Mule, my firelighter, the most ancient and withered of her kind, and, except to myself, not the best tempered, always makes me laugh. No difficult task when I am in the vein. Okay, well, if what you're trying to say there, George, is that women make excellent company, well, you're entirely right. But let's move on. So he said that 200 years ago. Then we move on to 1941, and this is Captain John Mansell. There is a rumor floating around today that we are going to a worse camp as a reprisal for the bad treatment of German prisoners at home. This from an officer I can't really credit it. I granted we have treated exceptionally well here, I own, but if the intention is reprisals, which I don't believe, this could easily well be made by a strafe lager. Scotty came into our room at 4 o'clock with news that we have to be packed by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Knowing Scotty, we took not the slightest notice, didn't even look up, but it proved shortly to be true. And there are no footnotes in the Assassin's Quote, so you just have to... And I agree with it. I agree with the fact that there are no footnotes, because that way you are thrust into not only the immediacy of the entry, but also the datedness of the entry. How much did this man care about these things? We don't even know what he's talking about. Maybe at the end of his life, if he lived past those concentration camps, maybe he didn't know what he was talking about. Maybe he lost all. Oh, yeah, I remember that now. And then we move on to 1948. In Gede's journal, I have just read again how he does not wish to write its pages slowly as he would the pages of a novel. He wants to train himself to rapid writing in it. It is just what I have always felt about this journal of mine. Don't ponder, don't grope, just plunge something down, and perhaps more clearness and quickness will come with practice. That's Denton Welch. And that, just as a side note about keeping a journal, is entirely true. It is exactly how you should keep a journal. Write as fast as possible. It should be the prose writing equivalent of that artist practice exercise where the tip of the pen never leaves the page. Continuous drawing. It should be the written equivalent of that. Open your journal page for the day, write the date, and then take a deep breath, think back on the period of time since your last journal entry, and write. No artistry, no falderall, no eyes of posterity over your shoulder, no nothing, just write until you're done. And I always say, just because I'm a thoroughgoing newspaper creature, I say, give yourself only one page. A 10-page journal entry is a performance for posterity, and posterity is not going to read your journal. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We're reading these people's journals, but the person who's going to read your journal is going to be you, a future you. And believe you me, if you don't believe me, take my word for it. Future you is going to find those 10-page maudlin, meandering entries unbearable. Future you is going to want to know how much you paid for your breakfast and where you got it and what you think about it. Those details, which fade, those are what future you is going to want to know. Write those and write them at breakneck speed. I love that advice. And then we'll finish up with another great big book here. Oh, okay, great. This also has a weird history with me. This is N.T. Wright and Michael Bird. This is the New Testament in its world. Great big fat thing that had, the reason that it looks so bad here is because it had a ripped gatefold cover. This is actually a window that's cut into the paper dust jacket. I have no idea why people make dust jackets like that. They are designed to be ripped. And this was ripped, but not my original. This is not my original copy. I got a copy of this from the publisher and got rid of it. I think I sent it to one of you. I'm pretty sure I got it on this channel. Did I? Maybe not. Maybe right before. Let's see. Oh, no, 2019. Yeah, so I probably got this on this channel. I think I sent it to one of you. Then I found a copy at the Brattle that was obviously in the sale lot because somebody had destroyed the gatefold cover, just like I would have certainly have done it if I hadn't got rid of it. I thought, I really like the book, so I'll save it. I'll just cover over the gap there. And I did, but this is a big, really beautifully illustrated sort of Cook's tour of the world of the New Testament, the world of the cities and the travel distances and whatnot. make some requests of you as a reader. The foremost one is very, very 19th century. It assumes that all of the events in the Gospels happened. All of them. Not just the travels of St. Paul, but all of the elements in the Gospels. It assumes that all of them happened. And just takes it from there. And is a little bit, at times, argumentative about that. So if you are of a mind frame where you don't believe that, you gonna want to know that going into this, definitely. But you'll get a really, really congenial reading experience if you do. If you just decide to put that reservation aside and just read this for what it is. Plus, it's beautiful. So I knew right away. I knew after I sent it away that I wanted to have a copy. I just waited for the Brattle to provide. Now all I need to do, if I really want, is for the Brattle to provide another copy, one that is in perfect condition. And then I can somehow put a library dust jacket cover over this to protect the window. I'm not sure that will work because the New Testament and its world is printed on the naked hardcover of the book. And a library dust jacket cover would almost certainly blank this out with the paper that backs the covering. I don't know how I'll do it. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just forego it. I use this thing anyway, and I love it anyway, and I'm not getting rid of this volume. And one of the little psychological benefits to having a really beaten up old copy of a book is that I'm never tempted to give it away. Right? I would never give this to someone because of the shape that it's in. I would just say, oh no, you deserve better. And as a result of that, I keep it. But anyway, that is this shelf. We will move on tomorrow. I'm going to leave this camera right where it is. I'll just be reaching up like this. That's not a hardship. It's the shelf after that that's going to be the problem. But we'll deal with that when we get to it. So I'll wrap this up for now. I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.